And the email says, I'm transgender. F you. You know, I obviously said something different. F you. I wish I had these opportunities when I was a child. Go F yourself. Us trans people have the right to exist. You have no right to take our freedoms away. America, the land of free. Huh? You're selling BS. Actually wrote the whole word out there. Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg reading emails of haters against us. Standing up for children. That's the whole difference here. If you're wondering why we're taking on this issue of transgenderism at the Capitol, it's because they are anti-Christian. They are going after our children. This is child abuse. The fact we can't all agree this is child abuse is insanity. And we're going to dive into that because we're going to talk about who the real Leigh Finke is. The first transgender legislator in Minnesota. Helping me, as always, is our political junkies led by Mega Jesse. How you doing there, Mega Jesse?
I'm doing good, yeah. We have a lot to expose with Leigh Finke today, and the timing couldn't be any better. It looks like the Senate is going to be voting on this transgender sanctuary state bill where they're trying to, cut off the genitals and mutilate children. They want to put them on all kinds of drugs. It's not good, so we need to fight them on every step of the battle.
Hormone treatment, too,
That's right.
Some of these things are irreversible. And that doesn't work well in the world of Mr. Straight-Laced William Beck, right?
Right. I mean, look, a lot of conservatives will take issue with the transgender issue. They're like, I don't care. Let people do what they want.
That was me, by the way. That was kind of me back in the day. Mm-hmm. Like, listen, I still to this day, I don't care. I mean, I might poke fun of you with friends and stuff because it's a little goofy dressing up like a woman, like the Aerosmith song. But I don't care. It's just when you make this public policy and you force speech, am I stealing what you were going to say away? It's forcing speech to do to the children.
I didn't have anything prepared. I never have a speech prepared. I just...
But that's you spoke to me on that one because that's who I was. Mm-hmm. It's just I'm not gonna get. I'm a let live and kind of person.
The problem is we can't be those kinds of conservatives. We got to draw the line somewhere because otherwise we let the left push us and push us and push us, and eventually bestiality is legalized, pedophilia is legalized. You got to draw the line.
That's literally where this thing's going is pedophilia, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. God, what was I reading the other day? Should I put in the prep for today's show? We're going to talk about the real Leigh Finke. There's so much to talk about. Running the dials, as always, back from the NAB show in Las Vegas is Dawson. Got to spend 4 days with that young man. Learned so much. We won't have time to go into that. And reading your comments is Bridget. Hey, Bridget. Back from Florida, by the way.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Actually, I got back into Florida, and it was pouring rain, and it was 85 degrees here, and then I came back here, and it was pouring rain. So that was a little sad. But
looks like you're bringing the weather with you.
Yeah, maybe.
Unfortunately, not the politics.
No, not at all.
Okay, let's talk about the Leigh Finke. Leigh Finke. If you don't know who this person is, Representative Leigh Finke, Chris Finke, a.k.a. Leigh Finke, made a name change. First transgender person, so that's a transgender woman, which means is a man pretending to be a woman, okay? Once again, you got to understand, this is a public policy maker. This is a person, as we're going to dive into it, seems to hate Christianity and wants to actually take young, impressionable minds and remove them from that faith.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we're going to talk about Leigh Finke today. So who is this Leigh Finke?
Leigh Finke, of course, is a groomer. That's what people should be 100% aware of. Leigh Finke isn't just some transgender who's just expressing themselves and living their lives. No. Leigh Finke is, trying to target children, trying to get children to accept this transgender agenda. It's very, very disgusting. And so I figured we better do some research. We better figure out who is Chris Finke. Who is this guy that is terrorizing children, that's bringing drag queens into the Capitol, that's pushing crazy bills, and is now the front, the face of the Democratic Party of Minnesota. Let's
back up and let's talk about. I mean, it wasn't always Leigh Finke. At some point, Chris Finke had to be a normal person.
Yep.
No, maybe not.
Yeah.
So who was Chris Finke before becoming Leigh Finke?
Right. So Chris Finke, he was a writer. He was an author. I think I've read just about every single article that you can find on this Chris Finke.
You got the books handy?
I do.
Sounds like you're a fan.
Yeah. So
it's not by choice. We're
gonna dive into what Finke's written. So these are books we purchased. This is 2 books here by Chris Finke. Why are you shining the camera on me? Show it on Jesse over there. There you go. 2 books, queerfully and wonderfully made. Just so you know, Jesse bought the second hand. So
that's right. I wasn't going to let Chris Finke get any of my money. I'll let you know that.
And just a quick note. He bought the second hand. They might as well have been new.
Right.
It doesn't look like the person even read it.
Yeah,
So.
thank God. You know,
Could be two reasons. They bought it and regretted the purchase, or they just bought it to give like a boost in sales and like, let's sell
Right.
the secondary market.
Mhm.
But you have to spin on those things.
you know, one of them was a little cheaper than the other one, probably about 17. One of them was about 17. Probably one of them was about 10.
Put that book back up, the Queerfully Made one. And
yeah,
now
this
zoom in
one
on
is
this.
specifically designed for children.
Yeah, you see that? It says a guide for LGBTQ plus. According to, I guess, apparently Leigh Finke doesn't like the IA community.
I guess so. Yeah,
but-
Or the 2S community. for
yeah.
that
Even,
matter.
even
Well,
Finke isn't woke
Oh yeah,
enough.
the 2+. Wait, did I get it wrong? What is it? LGBTQIA
2S
2S. I don't know
plus
the S.
2
That-
spirit.
Yeah, but they don't put spirit. I thought that's what the plus was.
Plus is
everything else. Yeah.
Yep.
It's
I thought
ba-
that-
I
because-
thought,
bigoted
I
here,
thought
Jay.
the
Because
two
they
spirit
even-
was something different though.
Well, even these, gay alphabet Nazis want to, even they know that they can't list out every single letter of the alphabet every single time they want to talk about this. So that's why they say that plus, because even they can't define the craziness that they're
I think
supporting.
they're trying to. They're shoving more and more in there, but that's beside the point.
Z-Zems, right? Can't forget the Z-Zems.
Mm-hmm.
Just make up crap. All right, so Chris Finke. Let's talk about Chris Finke.
Yep, so-
Author, writer in media of some sort.
Right. So I was, looking for some of this information about who was Chris Finke. Unfortunately, he has deleted a lot of his social media. A lot of, his online personality has been wiped off the face of the internet in a lot of cases. But Dawson, go ahead and pull up that first article I had sent you. So this is an article that Chris Finke wrote while he was still a dude. And
He still is a dude, by the way.
of course, but so this is basically a article.
Christopher Finke is the name.
That's right, and so the Zoomski, at least that's how I'd say it. But so that actually comes from his wife's marriage. I'm not sure about how many guys take their wife's last name in addition to
I
theirs.
actually met a guy I met a guy. I was in high school with a guy, and I found him later on in life up in the cities. I'm not from the Twin Cities. And he took his wife's name. And I'm old school, so, I kind of have my bias. But then I asked him, like, I'm just out of curiosity, why'd you take her name? She also was my grade. And he goes, well, my dad was, like, a really bad person, and I didn't want to carry out his name. I was like, well, that actually kind of makes sense,
Yeah, but that's
Well, about hyphenating your last name with your wife's name.
Yeah, but if
That's-
your dad was, like, such a monster, in some regards, like, do you want to carry that on the name? Now, maybe
Well,
your
you are still
grandfather
carrying
wasn't.
it on by hyphenating it. If
Yeah.
you just got rid of your last name and took your wife's.
That's what he did. He completely got rid of it.
Yeah, I get what
was
you're
like, that
saying
makes
with
sense.
someone that you knew, but yeah, in this case, it doesn't make any sense at all because Finke kept the last name Finke in there as well.
It's definitely like a
and
woke
now that
thing.
him and his wife are divorced, he is still keeping the name Finke. So it's just very weird. I'm not sure
New
the kind of
dad
guy that.
asks if male violence is the biggest threat to women. How do I raise a kind son?
Right. So what I find so shocking about this is,
Turn them into a
as
daughter.
someone, as someone who he's about to be a father, he's about to have a new baby boy, and he's sitting there saying, "I hope my son's not going to be a rapist. I hope my son's not going to be violent against women." It's like, who's thinking of that when you see a newborn? He's got this totally crazy radical feminist
So
viewpoint.
read me a passage. This is what he's thinking in the hospital. I know you covered this with me. So
Right.
we purposely, William and I didn't go through all the notes with Jesse ahead of time because I didn't want to just have some manufactured interview. You guys deserve better. Like, you guys like to learn this stuff with us. So that's why we didn't. I know you had brought this up a month ago when you first looked into it, but
Right.
what's the passage here?
So here's an interesting part of it. As I awaited our child, my awareness of news about sexual violence reached new heights and influenced how I thought about raising a boy or a girl. As a girl, my early thinking followed, could be protected. I worried about her safety, but I thought that I could shelter her from the particular threats made against young women. But a boy, that really scares me. Boys are the particular threat to young women. If we had a boy, how we would have to raise a man, and what kind of man would he be? So I'm kind of looking at this and I go, it seems as if Chris Finke himself struggles with being a man, and he doesn't know how to raise a man himself.
Well, yeah, duh, Jesse.
Right.
Duh.
Right.
Water's wet on that one. So he's looking down at his child. You were alluding to some passage about that. Was that not in here? Or?
Right. Yeah. There's a few other parts in here.
Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
I have
here. You
difficulty
probably didn't.
imagining my infant son as anything other than an innocent person as he is today. My assumption
Right.
is this: I'll be a good dad and he'll be a good boy, but I cannot see the future. I love him and want him to love others, to be kind, to be aware of his actions, and to treat people with respect. I want him to learn from those men who have chosen these things instead of power and abuse. So then he goes on to say men need to be peacemakers.
Which is what every good father should do, right? That, I mean, this is the typical left, that there's this toxic masculinity and it's just rampant, which is not rampant. It's so bullshit what they say. But obviously, yeah, there are some men that are very bad and probably are the biggest threat to a young woman. No doubt about it.
Right.
But that's not most men.
Right. No,
Right?
exactly. That's
The way that he phrases that.
Right.
And writes the article about it. It's
and
crazy.
exactly, because he's saying that the biggest threat to women are men, and that's not the case at all. The biggest threat, it's just such a nonsensical
hold on.
argument.
I mean, I could extract that to agree with that term, that the biggest threat to women are men, but not all men, a very small subcategory of men. But this just is the typical left. It's that men are the problem,
right.
It's all toxic masculinity.
Right.
Okay.
And so there are a lot of different woke articles that Chris Finke has written. If you go to yesmagazine.org, not you, Dawson, but people at home, if they want to look it up for themselves, if you go to yesmagazine.org and just go in that search bar and type in Chris Finke, you can find a whole list of crazy, crazy articles that he was writing. Very, very socially woke stuff.
So mostly a social justice warrior from the onset, from what you can tell. And
Yep.
This is pre-2017, is that correct? So married with a child.
Right, yeah, I was finding articles even from 2013. So
Okay.
from 2013 to, let's say, 2017.
Was he? Do you know? Was he always in the North Metro area? Because he represents
not
a
always.
district. Okay.
Right, so not always. It
From
looks
Minnesota?
No, so I believe he is originally from Minnesota, but he had taken a job in Portland, I think, for a while, or
Oh,
maybe it
there you
was
go.
Portland or Seattle, something like that, something in Chicago, different media jobs throughout. So lots of writing, lots of media producing, lots of things like that.
All right. So eventually, there's a transition, but first he comes out, and I'm going to use his term, queer. Comes out as queer.
Yeah. Yep,
Which
that's
just
right.
I guess means gay.
Yeah, well,
Because
I'm
the
not-
term queer, like the left's now hijacked that term, so they got the queer caucus. It's like their actual term. When I grew up, queer meant like you're flamboyantly gay.
It's like a derogatory term.
Well, yeah, and rightfully so, a derogatory term. Like you're like almost overly pushing yourself amongst like a straight individual, right? Like
Yep.
really obscene kind of stuff.
All right, well,
But nowadays they like hijack that term. And I wonder if that I almost don't even think they did that by, just pure non-coincidence. Like they had some plan there to use that term. And they still mean it the way they do, All right, so he comes out as queer, as he says.
Yeah, so Dawson, go ahead and pull up that second article that I had sent you, because in this, it's one of the few places on the internet. Go and scroll down a little bit, because you can actually see a picture of Chris Finke before all of this transition. He looks like a normal guy. He has a beard. And, most of these pictures, like I said, Finke has done everything he can to wipe them off the face of the internet. But basically what's going on in this article is he's saying that, I'm finally coming out as queer, and what goes on after that is just insane, because remember, this is a married man. This is a guy who's supposed to be, loyal to his wife, loyal to his children, not, engaging in extramarital affairs. But what ends up coming of his little new queer identity is he starts cheating on his wife with a man.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, like, the left praises this stuff. We have been talking about Zach Stevenson, the representative from Noka County, coming out as bisexual, and they it was you, William, that had joked like that he's just too boring as a just straight white male in the caucus. So now if
Right,
he's a football player, goes to both end zones.
Yeah. You get me every time
If
with
he
those analogies.
plays basketball, he shoots in both hoops. But it's like he's a married man with children. The beauty in the Christian faith is to have a monogamous marriage, and that's the best for raising kids, because that's really what it's about, is raising children
Right now, Zach
in a stable
Stevenson-
home. And so it's like the left actually praises a not stable home.
Right.
But we're going to get into this.
Right.
This is where this thing's going to go, is you're going to find it's really anti-Christian with these people.
And now Zach Stevenson, he's in the Queer Caucus, which I find out is chaired by Leigh Finke. So Leigh Finke is the one in charge of the queer agenda at St. Paul. Makes sense. That's exactly what the Democrats are pushing. But
all right, we're 15 minutes into this podcast. We are going to drop our YouTube feed. I would bet that this might be enough for YouTube to say, these guys are misgendering this person, and we're taking them off the internet. But anyhow, we don't want to even risk it at this point. So if you're watching YouTube, we're going to cut this feed. We're going to keep it going on Rumble. Follow us on Rumble at The Truth Hurts Show on Rumble. All right, so let's clear some comments before we get into some of the real meat and potatoes.
Yeah, we have a couple. So
I should say tofu.
K-Wall for Life says gender affirming care, more like gender denying abuse.
That's right.
And then someone said, JN18 says, this stuff got published, what garbage. And then Tucker's back, and he says, publishers will publish a ham sandwich these days.
mm-hmm.
But then, so we have Jane Ann says, they don't allow military victims of LGBTQ and military to speak out because it makes the LGBTQ look bad. Like
Yeah, they got a
Nashville.
woke guy in charge of the Department of Defense. I believe that.
Yeah, it's like Nashville. And by the way, we don't have the manifesto from the supposed trans shooter in Nashville. Isn't that interesting?
Yep,
Yeah.
they want to cover that up.
And then we have one more from Tucker. He says, Chris is what you call a pornographic crackhead. He's done so much that he's fried his brain. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at comments. New F 2727. Yeah, we played that too in high school, or not high school, but probably middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Smear
Oh, yeah,
the
this
you know
is-
what. that was what everyone played back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to be the guy. Growing up
We
in the
have,
Midwest as a boy. Toxic masculinity, how dare ya?
Yep.
Okay, so comes out as queer in his own terms.
Mm-hmm.
Probably praised by the left for doing this. Oh, he's so bold. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
then you leave your wife and your kid behind. And in this case, ends up getting divorced, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I think that is the biggest tragedy of this whole thing. I think the biggest part that really gets to me is the fact that this guy is abandoning, the father figure that he should be for his children. Now his kids will not have a father to look up to. They got they got a mom and they got a crazy guy who's dressing like a woman who's supposed to be their dad. So I think that's the real problem with this.
Do you think Chris Finke's got gender dysphoria in your psychological opinion? But do you get that sense, or do you think, because there's a spike in transgender people, and it's like there's not a spike in gender dysphoria unless they really are turning the frogs gay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a funny reference to the great Alex Jones.
Yep.
But is it this I need a new identity? Because there is a real confusion people have in their head. There is a real thing called gender dysphoria.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think he falls on the spectrum? Because if it's not that, then it's like you really are abandoning your children and being a good father figure.
Right. No, I mean,
Because right now you're being a not father figure.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
anybody who transitions has gender dysphoria.
I don't
That's
think
the
so.
definition.
I don't think so. No, gender dysphoria is literally confusion, like a mental disorder of not feeling the right thing.
Right.
What
Pe-
people
yeah,
are
there's
alleging
there's all
now
kinds
is,
of people faking mental disorders.
Yes, or
Right.
well, not even they wouldn't call it that, but they want to be. They have no community. They have no maybe existence. This is actually an interesting thing. Oh, this would be a great guest for us. So there was a Navy SEAL. His name is Chris Beck. He became Kristen Beck. I remember watching him on the Joe Rogan podcast. It was so confusing to me because you can't find a more masculine job than the Navy SEALs. Well, yeah, you can. Army Rangers. Sorry, I was Army. You can't find a more masculine job. And yet he transitions to become a woman. But even he, on that podcast, didn't really believe he was a woman. He is now detransitioned. And I was listening to an interview about it, and I don't think he's done a lot of media on it. Maybe we could get him, because it was fascinating to understand how someone could do that. And it really wasn't necessarily, from my estimation, that he really believed he was a woman. He even said when he was, dressed up as a woman, that he knows he's not a woman, right? Which, I got to imagine most of these people don't. You think Chris Finke literally says, oh, yeah, I'm a woman. I have ovaries and I can get pregnant. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, the left can't even define what a woman is.
Right, they're trying to change the definition.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't change the damn science. You can't change
Right.
reality.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Aaron May Quaid in the Minnesota Senate said that's bunk science to say that a man is a man and a woman's a woman.
Yeah, well, these are the people that also told you go get that vaccine. Someone just sent me a meme, and it was, hold on, my buddy. I don't know if he wants me to say his name, so I won't say it. He sends me the greatest memes. It's this angry liberal at his his MacBook. That's how you know I'm a lefty. It's got the Ukraine sticker on his MacBook, and it goes, "These unvaccinated assholes are supposed to be dead by now."
Yep.
Oh, trust the science.
Trust
Right.
the science.
So, okay.
Yeah. Well, so continuing
Yeah,
on,
let's go.
Dawson, go ahead and click on that third link that I had sent you. So this is going to, this is going to confirm some of our suspicions of what's going on with Finke. Go ahead and scroll down some, Dawson, to where you're going to see the picture.
Oh, yeah. I'm
that
sorry.
book.
Go back up to that picture there. A lot of people probably have no idea what he even looks like. Now, he doesn't have the purple hair right now.
Yeah, it's always changing.
They always change it, which is another thing here, right? I don't think it's gender dysphoria. I think it's a person that's lost and needs to find some identity, which is what I think ended up with Kristen Beck. He never felt like he belonged growing up as a child. His sister was better taken care of, and so therefore he thought maybe things are better as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think Chris Beck would say, I'm very confused. I think that's where Finke is, right? Wouldn't you think it's the same?
I think so.
Purple hair, blonde
yeah.
hair,
Right.
man,
so,
woman.
yeah, Dawson, go ahead and scroll down to where you're seeing the welcoming and affirming picture of the book. Yeah, right in there. Okay, so a couple paragraphs above that says, and don't get mad at me for calling Finke a her. I'm just quoting what this article says, okay?
Okay,
so
Jesse.
it says, now using her platform as a queer woman and former Christian. Remember that one, okay? Finke produces films and stories centered around the queer experience. After leaving Christianity, which she considered her closet, Finke now views the church simply as her workplace. Okay?
Okay, so right
think
there.
about that.
Think
What
about
a
that.
statement to say the church is just your workplace. You know, it's just a means to making money.
But more importantly, what kind of insane pastors and church administrators and congregations are allowing someone who despises the faith to come use them as their workplace? Mm-hmm. It's a joke, but we all in the Twin Cities know this very well. These aren't churches. They have a steeple. Do they still have crosses on those? I don't even know. Good God.
Might be racist.
Jesus may not have died for your sins. It's up in the air.
I think the bigger point, which I think you've been touching on here, is that the workplace, well, what kind of work are you trying to do? Well, you're trying to groom and indoctrinate kids away from the faith.
That's right.
And I'm seeing them less and less scared to admit that's what they're doing.
I think they're fine with admitting it at this point.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, this is grooming in the ultimate definition of the word. You know, this is saying I am targeting children to sexually exploit them with, ideas and things that should never be in their mind. I want to confuse children. What an evil person who says that they want to confuse children and tell children that they're born in the wrong body. You know, especially
'Cause God got it wrong,
in a
right?
spiritual setting, right? You know,
You're in the wrong body because God got it wrong.
right? There's no argument to that.
But, and you guys, you probably have children, at home or grandchildren, depending on your age, watching this thing. And this is it. They're coming for your children too. Now, if your child at all has some kind of confusion and thinks that they might be the opposite gender, they're literally willing, and this is what they're going to vote on Friday, apparently, in the Senate, willing to allow that person to get hormonal treatment, maybe genital mutilation, which is probably less of the case, but even irreversible hormone treatment's terrible, as young as 3 years old.
Well, and those are the drugs they use to castrate sex offenders.
Correct. Yes. So, so that's what if your child's not that, because that's a small percentage. They're trying to tweak your children's belief system and then compel speech so that you have to, refer to people in the manner that they want to. And it's so ridiculous where they got 100 different genders too. There's no end to how stupid it is. But when a young boy sees someone that exhibits the female characteristics, it's okay if he, it's clearly a man is not going to refer to it as a woman, but they're going to try to correct that and indoctrinate and groom your children.
Right.
And we saw this. Forgot to mention this. Was it last week? God, time flies. Dawson and I were in Las Vegas for the National Association of Broadcasters show. So I think it was last week where they were going to do this event. It was called, what was it called? Not Transformation Day. It was
the
fair.
Transgender Day of
Transgender
Equity
Day Fair.
Yeah.
So no, go to actionforliberty.com. I think it's on there. It was going to be in an elementary school, and it got changed, venue change. Elementary school drag queen story hour moves location after pressure from Action for Liberty and Patriots. Gender Resource Fair is what it's called. It was going to be at Loring Elementary School in Minneapolis. They changed the venue thanks to the pressure from you guys. I mean, what you guys do at home is just unbelievable. By the way, Jesse and William will be leaving after the show. They're meeting up with volunteers. We have volunteers in St. Cloud and Hastings and Cottage Grove and other areas pressuring these legislators, these senators, on this vote that's coming up tomorrow. And thank you. If you're one of the volunteers, thank you so much for doing it. A lot of people donated, too. Go to actionforliberty.com. Thank you for donating. We actually have phone callers right now on the phones calling constituents in these districts, and they're patching through, and they're going to these legislators, doing wonderful work. Your donations help that cause, and I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate it. Yeah, there you go. We got some flyers here.
These bad boys out here.
This is Eric Putnam. This guy's creepo.
Yeah.
This is the one that Jesse was at the town hall and gave him some stern words on him trying to violate the Second Amendment.
Yep.
You got another one there too, looks like.
Yeah,
that's the Seaberg one. Grant Hochschild up in Ely, International Falls. Robert Kupek up in Moorhead. You got a comment? Go ahead. Let's read the comment.
Yeah, we have a question from Andrea on Facebook. She says, what's the bill number they are going to vote on tomorrow?
Well, do we know if they're passing the House bill or they're just going to the Senate version, if there's any difference,
It's
guys?
the Senate version.
It's the Senate version. Do you know what the difference is?
It's just the Senate version of the House bill.
Right, but why wouldn't they just pass the already passed House bill?
Right, you
There's
would think
gotta be
there's some
difference.
kind of difference. But
Not
I'm not
from-
sure.
Not from what I saw, but I mean, it's.
So we think that whatever
happens.
if it passes tomorrow, it goes to the governor's desk. Governor Walz, who ran as a moderate in 2018, will sign this thing. Child abuse. It's crazy.
Yep.
Let's pull up the article on actionforliberty.com. Senate to vote on trans sanctuary bill this Friday. So we're going to take a minute here, and then we're going to get to Leigh Finke, what he has to say to young Christian teens. Because don't make any mistake about it. They are going for your children. So that's Leigh Finke. There's a million pictures of Leigh Finke. It's interesting. There's times we write stories of legislators and we have maybe 3, maybe 2 good pictures to pick from. Leigh Finke is all over.
Yeah.
All right. Scroll down there. There's 4 senators I think you should spend your time on. There's emails, phone numbers. A lot of people have been calling, especially if you live in these districts. Judy Seaberg, Senate District 41. Thank you to Tony Jurgens, former Republican, for endorsing her instead of a good patriot, Tom DePel. That was the closest election. That's what gave the balance of power to the Democrats. Won by 321 votes. So all selfish little Tony Jurgens had to do was flip 121 or 100. I can't do math right now.
Very
60.
small amount of
A
votes.
very small amount of people. 160.
Yeah.
161 votes. That's all you had to do. Jeez, Jake, do some math. That's Hastings all the way up to Lake Elmo. It's actually my senator, unfortunately. Grand Hochschild, that's International Falls, all the way through the Boundary Waters to Grand Marais. So moose population. Rob Kupek, that's up in Moorhead area, just outside Detroit Lakes. I think his district ends outside of Detroit Lakes. Eric Putnam, that's St. Cloud, Senate District 14. We'll go back to that at the end. Those are the people that need to hear from you. If they vote for this tomorrow, if you're watching this past this vote and they voted for it, everyone needs to know about it. This is child abuse, because what it does is it says if a let's say a mother brings her child from a different state that protects children, which are a bunch of states, and the left is like, these are the awful states, these terrible red states. They're just trying to protect children. Mother could take her child against the laws of that other state, and Minnesota will not abide by those laws, and they'll allow that kid to get hormonal treatments or genital mutilation surgery. That is the big legislation that the Democrats are pushing, and Tim Walz has already said he's going to sign this thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all, you just can't believe how radical the Democrats have gotten this quick.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we answer that question fine. Do we have any other questions before we move on?
No, we don't have any other.
Okay.
All right. You know, one thing I want to get into before we start digging into the children end of things and all the stuff going on there, I want to take things from the political end of things and kind of understand how did we end up in a spot where this kind of person is allowed to be a state representative. So I was doing digging into the endorsing convention that the Democrats held in 66A, which is the House district of Finke.
Badness Heights, is that
Yep.
right?
Yep. So, and what I was finding was there were 3 candidates who showed up to the endorsing convention. It was a guy named Yakasa Wehi, who is a Falcon Heights city councilman, Leigh Finke, and Dave Thomas. So Yakasa Wehi, what I was actually finding about this guy, he actually appeared to be the establishment choice. I was finding that he was endorsed by John Choi, who is the Ramsey County attorney, Julie Straheen and Wayne Groff of the Roseville City Council, the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, State Representative Dan Walgamot, State Representative Esther Agbage, and Abage, whatever, and State Representative Athena Hollins, and then a Ramsey County Commissioner. And at the beginning, Finke wasn't lining up these endorsements at all. So what was going on was the Democratic establishment was saying, Wehi is our guy. And he's this black immigrant. I think he's from Nigeria. So, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, so the endorsing convention happens. Dave Thomas is eliminated.
You know, the Democrats in their oppression Olympics are like, oh, we got a immigrant black guy. Oh, wait a second, move him aside. We got the transgender person.
Yeah, exactly.
That's better.
Right, I know.
More oppressed.
I almost wonder, like, you know.
That's what they do.
Right.
100% that's what they do.
Yep. And
that's why the guys like Zach Stevenson, the straight white males, got to recreate themselves because it's just like.
They want to remain relevant.
Yeah. It's
And
not
I mean, you
fun.
look at Finke, like you look at all these social media posts from these left-wingers, they all want a picture with this guy. They all want to promote this guy. He's the superstar of the DFL party right now.
This is why the Democrats and left are so morally bankrupt. It's like that's what they do is they look at the skin. They look at these terrible, shallow things, whereas in like at least, well, I don't want to say Republicans, good people like the rest of us and you at home, we look at the content, the character, the beautiful words of Martin Luther King Jr. That's what matters. It's what you believe in. It's what you do. It's how you navigate the world if you have good ethics and morals. But they don't. They care about just the identity.
Yep. So the first round of the endorsing convention goes on, and Yakasa Wehi is ahead of Leigh Finke according to the first round of the votes. And I'm sure a lot of our supporters and a lot of the people watching have been to an endorsing convention before. It's the same rules. You got to get 60% of the support in order to have the endorsement. Nobody was able to do that in the first round. So that meant this Dave Thomas, who was in last place, gets knocked off the ballot. They do another round of voting. So the second round of voting all of a sudden made it a perfect tie between Yakasa Wehi and Leigh Finke. Then they both agree, okay, let's just take this to a primary. If it's perfectly evenly split, they're not going to convince them to make an endorsement that day. So it seemed as if everything is moving to a primary. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I think probably because of DFL pressure, I'm sure the Democrats were getting to this guy, but Yakasa Wehi all of a sudden announces he's dropping out of the race. And the only excuse he has is that he wants to spend more time with family. You know, we hear that excuse all the time in politics. There's always more things going on behind the scenes than are actually being shown. So I wonder, who was it within the Democratic Party that was pressuring this guy out? And why was the Democratic Party so hell-bent on making sure that Finke was their nominee?
And you obviously are asking that rhetorically because we all understand that's exactly what they want. They that's what they do. They want this queer caucus. They want to have their first transgender male, which is a transgender female, right? Leigh Finke, really Chris Finke. They got the non-binary. What is the one from Duluth? Alicia
Two-Spirit.
Yeah, she's
Two-Spirit. She's the Two-Spirit one.
Yeah.
There's a non-binary one as well. Good God, I can't remember their names. So they got a
Brian Curran.
Yeah,
or
Brian
whatever,
Curran. That's
that
a non-binary
ogre lesbian.
Yeah, non-binary.
Yeah.
They got the two-spirited. I can't think of her name.
It's they.
Yeah,
That's-
Alicia.
I can't think of their name.
You know what they say.
Alicia Kozlowski.
That's what it is.
So Alicia, what was it?
Kozlowski.
Kozlowski.
Yep.
And we looked up. She looked like
Or
a good-looking
Kozlowick, maybe.
woman
I
too,
don't know.
not so long ago. It's like
Yeah.
she hacked up her hair and put on those liberal glasses everyone knows.
That's the one with like the dead eyes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that the press conference on this transgender bill. Right?
That's right.
By
Yep.
the way,
So
I don't want to like be mean-spirited to a lot of just people that are going through confusion and stuff like that. We're poking fun at these people that are in the public spotlight. They're literally creating public policy that's very bad, child abusive stuff.
Well,
Yep.
don't hesitate to believe that they would definitely make fun of us too.
Well,
if we were in
they
the
pretty
same
much call
situation.
us Nazis and
Racist, terrorists,
yeah. Well, I mean, MAGA Jesse and MAGA Republican is the largest threat to America's democracy. So
that's what they say.
like
Anybody to the
literally,
right of Barack Obama
they
is-
say far worse things about us, right?
Yep.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
jeez.
So anyway, this goes on, and luckily, this Dave Thomas decided he
By
was
the way,
not going
not
to.
Dave Thomas of Wendy's, just in case you're
Yeah,
confused.
right.
He's going to continue making great burgers, never frozen, in square because he doesn't cut corners.
Yep.
That's Dave Thomas, the guy of Wendy's, not this Dave Thomas.
That's right. So
Never heard that joke before. That took William a good 10 seconds to get that joke.
yep. But so all of these
Yeah, look
major.
at him.
I
He
never
just
made
got
those
it.
connections.
You never made that connection? That's why they're square.
Well, we never talk about this.
That's why they're square
We've never
patties.
talked about this Dave Thomas guy before.
Okay, there
Not
you
the
go.
Wendy's guy. I'm familiar with him. But
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so all of a sudden, all of these major endorsements shift over to Finke. That's what happens after this Yakuza way he drops out. All of the endorsements move over to Finke. So that's
Including
why
Dan Wolgamott, Sylvester the
Dan
Cat.
Wolgamott, yeah,
There
exactly,
you go.
and
Well, you got
John Marty.
He got the
whole
coveted
bunch.
Wolgamott
Yeah.
endorsement. So
Which is pretty crazy. But anyway, so Dave Thomas, he is a candidate. He was someone who was actually a part of the Independence Party. He had run for U.S. Congress, and he had run for the State House before with the Independence Party. He seemed to be more liberal. He seemed to lean more liberal on the side of things, but
more liberal than
not Finke. No, I'm saying just in general, he was more
oh
more left-leaning than right-leaning. But I like that he was, coming from a third party, all of that stuff, and I could tell that he.
I thought he was comparing him to Finke.
No,
I
no,
thought
no.
so, too.
Yeah,
I was-
No, I realized I was wording it in a kind of weird
like
way
a total
there.
communist or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But he continues to go on to the primary. He's focused on things like term limits and removing lobbyist control and stuff that actually seems to make a little bit of sense here and there.
So we think that basically the Democrats really wanted Finke. This was going to be their poster child for
Right.
the transgender. Now, I don't know how high up it went, but there was a very famous press conference. You can go back. It's one of our best watched shows. When is that? Like a month and a half ago? Where Walls parades a 6-year-old up on stage to talk about genital mutilation surgery for 6-year-olds, as young as 6 years old. I think at this point it's even down to 3-year-olds.
Right.
That's how crazy it is.
Right. So
let's get past.
and one last thing here. So according to the Campaign Finance Board, Dave Thomas, the one who ran against Finke, unfortunately, he lost the primary to Finke. But what I found out was Paula Overby, who some people may remember as the transgender legal marijuana now party candidate, who would also, kind of be a perennial candidate. What I found out is Paula Overby, someone who, is a transgender, supported Dave Thomas over Leigh Finke. And speaking with some of the people that knew Paula Overby, because Paula Overby is now dead, but speaking to people that knew Paula Overby, it sounds like they didn't like that Finke was all about trying to transgender the children up, trying to do the drag queen story hours. I guess Paula Overby was against all of that kind of stuff. So I find it very interesting that there is even a division within the transgender community on Finke because of how extreme and radical Finke is.
yeah, and I didn't know Paula well, but actually Paula came to our Christmas event.
Yeah.
2022 or no 2021, I think he was like of the Chris the Navy SEAL guy's name, I can't think of it right now. Chris Beck of that kind of camp.
Mm-hmm.
Some confusion there, right?
Yeah.
Not bought into this full-on leftist craziness. And this is the thing, right? The whole LGBTQ community, like log-cabin Republicans, don't even believe in all this crap.
Right. Yeah, and there's the Gays Against Groomers. There's all kinds of organizations that are, either gay or transgender or something else, but they're against what's going on because they see how evil it is.
Here's the thing, and this is the cult mentality of the left. When you come out against it, you are shunned. You are, threatened, and this is pretty well documented. I know Chris Beck brings this up. Of course,
no relation, by the way.
No relation. Chris Beck's an interesting character. I'm just gonna put it that way. I got a great bit of respect for people who serve in those kind of roles in combat. So I don't think anyone's gonna threaten Chris Beck. That's a person that's a killer, a trained killer, right? But there are some people that speak out. I think Liz Collin with Alpha News did a great interview with now I'm gonna have to remember this, a woman who transitioned to man, went back and spoke out about how bad it was that we played it on this show. And
I think it was a young person, too.
It was a young person, in the young 20s. And you really feel bad for that individual. I think it was a girl that transitioned to boy.
Yeah, it was a girl.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the real essence of it, because this is when we look into Leigh Finke, and there's probably more to learn about, but we wanted to bring you what we found out about this person on the eve of supposedly passing this awful legislation.
Yep. So what I found out
Hold
was...
up that book again. I want to go into this
Yeah,
book.
I want to get into it too. So I found out that the publishing group that Leigh Finke was a part of was called 1517 Media. And it was through that publishing company that Finke got in contact with Beaming Books and Broadleaf Books, which are the people who published these two books here. So what I did some digging to see, well, who are these companies? What do they stand for? And these companies claim to be Christian. Broadleaf Books and Beaming Books claim to be Christian publishing companies, and they are publishing the work of someone who is not a Christian, someone who is trying to influence Christianity, and someone who is trying to dissuade children from Christianity. So this group, 1517 Media, Beaming Books, and Broadleaf Books, those are, three places that conservatives need to boycott because they are, totally they're twisting the...
Who are you to start talking about boycotting Mr. Budweiser?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, look at what I'm saying here, man.
Well, are these actual publishers, or do they just publish the same left-wing nonsense?
Say what?
Like, are these actual Christian publishers, or do they just publish left-wing stuff?
Well, they publish a whole bunch of different stuff for children, stuff for
yeah,
adults.
have you looked at their catalog? It'd be interesting. Maybe they got a market of this exact crap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, is this their
right.
shtick, or is
I don't think that's a good question.
And they're like
yeah.
Leigh Finke masquerading as a Christian. The problem with Finke is he talks too much. And so now you got a public statement saying, I'm not a Christian, right?
Yep.
But maybe they aren't as dumb and they still masquerade as Christians. Let's just be honest about the modern...
And I've seen leftists online.
Let's be honest about the modern evangelical churches, right? A lot of them are masquerading as Christians. They really aren't, right?
Whoa, why are we picking on evangelical churches?
Well, I think for the most part, the Catholic Church at least is rooted still in Christianity, right? You could find
we could have a long conversation.
We could have a long conversation on that, but
that's a debatable one.
Well, all right, Bridget and I will take you guys on that one, right, Bridget?
You're not Catholic.
I'm actually Lutheran, that's right, but I'm about as close to Catholic as they come as a Lutheran. I believe pastors can get married. That's probably one of the differences.
Right.
Yep,
You actually can have a married priest. It goes all the way up to the Pope, by the way.
Right. And so here's what I found out about. Here's what 1517 Media said about Beaming Books, the one who made this book for children here, the one that published it on behalf of Finke. 1517 Media says about them, quote, children books that help children thrive emotionally, socially, and spiritually. So do we think that this book here is helping children thrive emotionally, socially, and spiritually, or do we think it's dissuading them from it?
Well, we don't know, Jesse. We haven't got into it yet. So let's put that cover up, zoom in on this. So once again, I want you to understand this book, Queerfully and Wonderfully Made by Chris Finke. Does it say, it says Leigh Finke on it. So that
it does, yeah.
Leigh Finke. A guide for LGBTQ+. He doesn't like the two-spirited folks.
Guess not.
Or the... what's the A? It's not ambidextrous. It's
asexual.
Asexual. Christian teens.
Wouldn't be surprised if ambidextrous people are in there soon.
I got my head went one direction. I'm not going to even bring that up after the show. Maybe when we do...
My head's not going there. I'm genuinely curious.
Well, it took you 10 seconds to get the squared corner joke.
It's taking me longer than that on this one.
Maybe when we start doing like show supporters, we'll have like a after-hours show or whatever for supporters, and then we can really go to our humor. Okay, so what does this book say? Because this is targeted towards young Christian teens.
Yep. And I've seen Finke in interviews say that this is for basically anyone 13 and up. Okay, so this is the ideas. These are the ideas that Finke thinks should be going to your 13-year-old child's mind. So go ahead and start with that page there. Look at that. It says, "Help, I'm a horny, queer teenager." So this is a book that's supposedly pretending to be Christian, that's talking about how children feel horny and what to do about it. So it goes on to say in here things like the simplest sex question is, should I have sex or not? The simplest answer is maybe. How crazy is that? That's what Finke's saying.
Christians
to kids. To kids.
Churches are my workplace.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Yeah, sex. Bible's kind of... they don't really mention much about out of marriage sex. Nothing
Yeah,
really
right.
about that.
I know.
Like, just you get past the transgender or the gay part of it. Just even if it was a book on straight and answered it that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you doing?
Yep. No, I know it doesn't make any sense.
Because
because you wouldn't be telling children or teenagers to have sex, straight sex either. It doesn't. It just goes to show that it's pretend. It's not actual Christianity in this.
The gospel according to Leigh Finke.
Yeah.
Much more than Mark, Luke, and John, right?
Yeah, I guess so. So let's go on to another part of this book here that I think is just appalling. Go ahead and zoom in on that. Can I look at porn? So, again, this is a book for children that is talking specifically about pornography and how, you should even watch queer pornography because, you're not going to learn about queer sex in school. So you should be watching it on the internet. It's just
Still
like, what are
working
we
on that.
talking about here? Because, this book is saying, you got to learn how queer people have sex because it's not just normal sex. It's all kinds of touching and, it's like sex is a man with a woman, and, for Finke to be suggesting that children should be going on the internet, looking at porn, looking at, crazy gay stuff, and, no parent should ever allow their children to be reading this book. It's terrible.
This is very entertaining watching Jesse dive through the chapters of this
I know.
book. And
I
give
went
his,
through this entire propaganda book. I'm a
Yes, Jesse's job was to read this book.
Yeah,
Yep.
you couldn't pay me to read that.
Yeah. Right.
Actually, you said you wouldn't mind reading it too, William. What are you talking
Well,
about?
yeah, it was a joke because Jesse was paid to read it.
All right.
But let's see here. How do I know when I'm ready for it? We mean sex.
That's very funny. It's very funny on Leigh Finke's part.
Yeah, so how do I know when I'm ready for it? We mean sex, okay? So basically, Finke is telling kids that, it's all up to you. Whenever you're comfortable with it. So, it's not telling children, no, you probably shouldn't be having sex. It's telling kids, go ahead, pursue it, do whatever you want, And then the very next chapter, how do queer people even have sex? Okay, so Finke decides to, I better put it in writing, put it in detail so these children can learn how to have queer sex with each other. And, some of the description, it's not even sex. Like I was saying, it's just touching. It's, they say, oh, it could just be, I don't even want to say,
No, I am actually now really interested. We're off YouTube, right? Okay, good.
Okay, how about this? The freedom of queer sex. Don't tell your straight friends, but you're going to have much better sex than they are. The beautiful thing about queer sex, like queer relationships and queer life in general, is that there are no norms or assumptions or pre-existing roles to play. We challenge and reject stereotypes and expectations by just doing anything. So when a man has sex with a woman, there are certainly expectations of what sex will be pretty close to the culture that has taught them what it should look like. But when two women or two men or a trans woman and a non-binary person or a trans man and a gay man get in bed together, there is no pre-existing assumption about what the heck is going to happen.
Yeah, I'm actually really confused on what happens.
Exactly.
And that goes in there, and where goes it here, and what, and what?
And according to Finke, it's anything goes. You get to just determine whatever you want, and that's the message to children. It's crazy.
Choose your own adventure book there.
That's right. And, if you want to go on an adventure, Leigh Finke says, can I go to a local queer sex shop, and why should I? So, that's
Wait, that exists? They have queer sex shops?
Aren't they all something?
I'm pretty sure kids legally can't go in there, right?
You would hope not.
Oh, well, I mean, if
Or
they
like
can
stores have
well, hold
policies
on.
against that?
How dare you? When your children tell you something, you need to listen to them.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to question
I'm Peggy Flanagan. We need to listen to our children,
it. Yo,
especially 6-year-olds who
That's
think they're a
great
girl
parenting.
right now.
Great parenting
That's
on her
great
part.
parenting. Don't you know?
I bet her kids have a diet of candy too.
mm-hmm.
Got to listen to them.
Gotta listen to them. Yeah. Man, geez, my children, if they just got to pick their food.
Yep. So, so it goes on here. Why go to a queer sex shop? There aren't many places where a queer person can go to shop for queer-specific merchandise in a judgment-free environment. We especially want to highlight how beneficial such a place can be for trans, genderqueer, and non-binary teens. There are places that you can often buy and learn how to use all kinds of queer garments, including gaffs, binders, and corsets. It's crucial to learn how to use these items. And, it goes on to continue
I
on
like
with
how this
the-
book is very Christ-centered, for LGBTQ
Yeah, right.
Christian teens. Very Christ-centered
And that's
book.
the thing, because Finke
Is
doesn't...
actually Jesus mentioned one time in this book?
I can't remember it, honestly. And
Because I think
Finke-
I've heard you say queer about 30 times in the
Right.
summation of this book.
No, and
was
Finke
Jesus
says... Finke's,
mentioned one time in the book.
Right, and Finke says that I'm not here to make the argument that, to prove that you can coalesce these ideas, the Christian and queer stuff, I'm just trying to help the children that are in Christian families. That's one thing that I found. He says, he's not even helping Christian teens. This book is for teens in Christian families. So he's looking for people to leave the faith. And there's plenty of other things in
I'm
here.
curious
after.
if we got queer sex shops. Will you Google that real quick? No, I'm just kidding. Deep State Dawson's like, no.
Yeah.
We'll track that stuff if people
Jesse.
look that up.
Right, and then,
What do you got, Bridget?
Tim Woolery on Facebook wants to know how I can sign up for the MAGA Jesse's book club.
Yeah, right. That would be
That's a
something.
really good idea. The MAGA Jesse Book Club.
Mhm.
Oh my God, diving into the craziest left-wing books out there. Man,
Something like that
we
would
might
be
need to
good.
start that.
Yep. So yeah, there's all kinds of things in here. If you go to the
Well,
back,
okay, let's
there's,
talk about. I thought there was something about what if your pastor is teaching against. What was that?
right.
phrase.
Yeah, let me find that specific chapter here. So,
And
yeah,
once
is
again,
my church's teachings abusive, and can I leave it?
there you go. Let's show that chapter. Which one is that?
So go ahead and take a look at that. So basically, this is a chapter, and there's multiple chapters that basically go over this, but basically telling kids, like, you're not wrong, your pastors and parents are the ones that are wrong, you should live your truth, live your life however you want, and,
Of course.
If,
I'm guessing the main audience here, the pastors are wrong.
Yeah, of course, that's the thing, because, pastors and anyone who is a faith leader should tell children that are confused about their gender, they should give them help. They shouldn't be trying to convince these kids to change their gender. So I guess, according to Leigh Finke, anything that doesn't completely affirm transgenderism is abusive, so unless we totally bend the knee and accept every single one of their demands, they're never going to be happy, and we're the evil ones for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is where this whole thing's going, in my opinion. It's just grooming children, and that's really what they're not even hiding that agenda.
No.
Right? They're just right out there in the face of everybody. Did you hyperlink the transgender?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go back to the Action for Liberty article we last had pulled up, and you guys at home can go to actionforliberty.com to read about this. The bill that they're bringing up, scroll up. We have it hyperlinked. There you go. Is it a confirmation? No. Where's the hyperlink, William?
To the bill?
Yeah, to the article we had before.
March.
Okay, click on March there. There you go. So this was passed at 5 a.m. in the Minnesota House. There's Dave Lisgard skipping out on that very important vote. Oh, I should mention this. So the Minnesota Senate is a slight majority by Democrats, 34 to 33, right? One Democrat votes against the bill doesn't pass. One Democrat's gone, the bill doesn't pass because you don't have a majority.
Mm-hmm.
That's how important it is. Likewise, if a Republican doesn't show up, because I don't know any Republicans supporting this, but if a Republican doesn't show up, a Democrat can avoid the vote. So you need all 33 Republicans showing up for that vote, right? One Democrat, and we showed you the names of those Democrats that are most vulnerable, can stop and kill this bill. And what this bill does is it takes a law of another state that's trying to protect an individual, like an individual child, as young as, I don't think there's an age limit. Do I have that right? No age limit on this?
Right.
But they paraded a 6-year-old out there on stage with Tim Walsh. who
Exactly.
supports
That
this.
means there's no age limit, you know?
Right.
If they're willing to do a 6-year-old, they're willing to do anything.
And then in this article, and you can go back and read this one, it talks a little bit about the amendments that the Democrats killed. But essentially what this bill does is it allows the children of a different state, it loses their protection from this awful genital mutilation surgery or hormonal treatment. You know, I always think of the mutilation surgery as the worst, but hormonal treatment, that's irreversible. It could be just equally as bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, didn't we talk about that on the show, that the mutilation surgery doesn't really work? Your body then tries to, you know, overcome it, and it just, ugh.
Well, it
Right.
depends on what you're doing. If you're this is a little gross, but as long as we're going here, if you're manufacturing a fake penis, yeah, your body's probably going to reject that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's no way your body can reject chopping off healthy breasts. Like, what's it going to do?
Right.
Get infected at most, I'd assume.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's go to some comments. Let's hear what you guys have to say, Bridget. What do we have here? I'm sure Tucker's weighed in quite a bit.
Yeah, we have Kathy, though, on Facebook says, how do they sidestep the well-known scientific fact that the human brain is not developed until age 25?
That's right. Yeah, the prefrontal cortex isn't even fully developed at 25.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at some point, we do have to, as a society, define what the age of the majority is, what a grown adult is. We generally say 18. I say generally because you can't serve in Congress till 25. You can't own a handgun. That's actually changed according to a lawsuit, but
I think generally it's actually 21.
21. I think cigarettes is 21 in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah,
Drinking
nationwide.
21. You can go to war and die for your country at 18. You have to sign up for selective service by then.
Mm-hmm.
So I think 18 is a reasonable.
Yeah.
I always think 18 plus you got a high school diploma. There you go.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm trying to remember what state it was. It might have been Arkansas, but it was some southern state that has, you know, the transgender law that actually requires people to wait for 3 months or something like that and really think through their decisions before they are allowed to go and, you know, get the approval for the surgery. I'm not sure if that's the best idea or not because it just gets government involved and stuff. But, you know, as long as it's blocking kids, you know, that should be the main rule, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, government exists to protect the rights of the people, and minors cannot consent.
Right.
Whether it's 3 months or ever.
Yeah.
Is this 3-month rule for all transgender surgeries, or is it?
It was for, well, and also the law says that you got to be 18. So
Yeah.
it was for
Yeah,
people
so it's just
over
adults.
18.
I think generally that's a good idea anyway.
But you disagree with us that an adult shouldn't even be able to get the treatments. Didn't you take that position, William?
Yeah, I have taken that position because I think these surgeries should be criminal. It really does leave people in a worse position, and the suicide rates continue to climb, regardless of whether or not you get the surgery or treatment or you don't.
Mm-hmm. But
So
even
it's
if
really
it was,
detrimental for society, and we can't allow this
But
degeneracy
see,
to
I
continue.
come down on this standpoint. Well, yeah, I guess if you broaden out to society, but I just think an adult individual should be able to make up a decision even if it's harmful to themselves.
Right, but
Like
we
you
keep-
could make the argument that someone hang gliding is a very dangerous thing or any kind of extreme sport, but they should have the right to do it.
I mean, you can make that argument.
I know,
We
I just
opened the
did.
show, and you did make that argument. When we opened the show, I kind of complained about conservatives who say, well, this is okay. This degeneracy over here is okay. But this is where we got to draw the line. But the problem with that is you eventually keep pushing the line as societal standards form your worldview.
Mm-hmm.
You really got to have a set standard of values. And for you guys, it's liberty, and that's awesome.
And for you, it's not.
I mean, I used to be more
Mr.
of a
Straight-laced
libertarian.
himself. There you go, William.
I used to be more of a libertarian, but watching what's happening to kids, watching people like Leigh Finke exist, and pushing their ideology onto kids.
Well, that's it. I mean, we all agree with that. With the
regardless
kids.
of whether or not it's legal, though, it's still going to happen, and that's the problem.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, let's go back to your comments.
So we have Tucker is here, and he said he'd gladly join Jesse's book club in a heartbeat.
Awesome.
I do think it's actually a great idea. People would be interested.
But then I just have one more from Tucker. He says, any person who sterilizes a child should be put to death, and Elon Musk is calling for this, which I never saw that. Elon Musk is saying that.
Yeah, no, I had seen that too, that Elon Musk is calling out the transgender agenda for children. So that's a good sign of things, because Elon Musk, it's hard to tell if he's on our side or not.
Biden.
You know?
He admitted to voting for Biden in that BBC interview, which was a great interview. That was so much fun to watch that. Like, that stupid journalist, like, you realize the guy's a genius, right?
Yeah.
He tried lying to his face. It just backfired. I think we played that clip on our last show.
Yeah.
What else we got here? We want to hear from you guys.
We have a comment from Bill, however you say his last name. So he says, please share this graphic on the show to display what other states' laws are about child sexual surgeries. And then he put a link. So if Jesse wants to throw that
Did
up
we look
there.
at the link yet?
Nope, I haven't. So
Did you say if Jesse wants to throw it up there?
Did you call Deep State
No.
Dawson the wrong name?
oh, maybe. I said Jesse. Sorry, Dawson. I mean Dawson.
I do it too. I don't know why it is like that, Dawson.
Jesse in the back.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to tell a story about Dawson. Dawson's never shot a firearm before.
Bill, we can't click the link if you want to share it individually in the chat.
Well, we better vet the link that's being sent, especially if it was a Google search for queer shops in the
Yeah,
Twin
right.
Cities area. So Dawson's never shot a firearm before, and we went to a range in Vegas. He got to shoot a 249 saw, which is a machine gun. But the first gun he shot was a 6-hour pistol. And here's a guy who's never shot before. He got, what, a minute, 2 minutes instruction from the guy at the range.
Something like that.
First shot, center mass. Second shot, center mass. Third shot, center mass. We're like, what on earth? How's this guy hitting at like 10 yards? How's he hitting this target at 10 yards? And he just looks back. He's like, video games.
I have a picture that I can try to get up in a.
Oh, yeah, I got video you. Maybe we'll pull that up on the next episode. What else we got here, Bridget?
So there's not a whole lot of other comments other than people going back and forth. But Kathy did add to her previous comment that the 18-year-old hand glider doesn't expect the government to pay for it. So,
Yeah.
Yes, we all agree with that
True.
one, right? Oh, I forgot about that. Do we know the status right now on getting transgender surgeries paid for on the taxpayer's dime? That was in
I'm sure it's going to happen.
that was in the HHS omnibus bill, I think, right? Did we? Because who voted on the HHS omnibus bill yesterday? Was that the
That
Senate?
was it was the Senate. I wish I had my notepad
All right.
here. I'd
Well,
be able to,
yeah, I wish we were more prepared here on that one. See, this is tough. Like we track legislation like as good as anyone, but even things are slipping through the cracks. First of all, we didn't think that this bill was going to be heard on Friday, and it might still not. You know, I think the political junkies here will go live tomorrow and bring you coverage, live reaction to it if it's done earlier in the day. At this point, the Senate is planning on gaveling in at 9 in the morning or 9:30 in the morning.
9 in the morning.
And then they're going to recess apparently, and then who knows how long they recess for. They might go late in the night again.
Yep.
Because isn't that what happened with the last time they passed this bill? It was 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, they want to get it done when nobody's watching, and nobody's watching in the middle of the night except, people like us that pay attention, so.
Even our whole team fell asleep eventually, right?
Yeah, eventually.
I think you were the last one to stay up. and
Yeah,
it
I was
like
up
2 or
until
3 in the
about
morning.
4:30 in the morning, then there was no more. I had no more energy.
Yeah. Poor Jesse. I need to announce the winners of our gift card giveaway, Shields, which is not super woke. When we wanted to do our giveaway.
We probably got about 10 minutes before we got to scoot.
Yeah. And that's what I'm looking at the clock. Yeah, William and Jesse got to head out. There's Dawson. That's your target? Yep. Now, so if there's any haters out there, first of all, he shot a machine gun. machine guns are not precision firearms. They're meant to basically cover an area, a small area. And machine guns walk too, so you're not just going to place the same bolt in the same area. That's why the M4 has a 3-round burst. Actually, they had fully automatic M4 there, but
Most of the handgun shots were right.
yeah,
in
you can
orange,
see it.
right?
That's the 9mm, so it's a white. So this 5.56 was the rifle rounds. So that's actually smaller circumference. It's much more energy than the 9mm, but it's a smaller circumference.
Heck yeah.
So you see the big ones. So what you were doing is your first, if you look in the middle, those were your first ones with the handgun, and then you start creeping to the left. But, from my vantage point, Dawson, those are still good groupings.
I don't know what a grouping is.
A grouping means like how closely they're placed to each other.
Okay.
There you go. Dawson's first time shooting.
Ever. That's right.
He's so proud of himself.
Deep state.
Deep State Dawson. All right, there we go. So winners of the gift cards. $50 gift card winner.
Here we
Dennis
go.
Wiesenberg. Congratulations, Dennis. Dennis has actually been by the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Good guy. I like Dennis. So, Dennis, you're the winner of a $50 gift card to Shields. And for a $100 gift card to Shields, remember, if it was up to last Thursday, I think it was a week-long contest. People just had to like us on Rumble and then enter in online. So the winner of the $100 Shields gift card will be sending this out to you, I think, digitally. I think it's digitally, not by mail, but is Sylvia Scheibel. Scheibel? Sylvia? You know who you are. Sylvia, thank you for entering the contest. You won the $100 gift card to Shields. I know Dennis Wiesenberg will love the $50 one. That guy's a hunter. So, and I was thinking about Shields is they got clothing and stuff like that too. She could buy one of those. What do you call those mugs that you like, Bridget? I was gonna say Hydro Flask. That's
Stanley
not
Cup.
it. Stanley
Cups. Yeah,
Stanley
I got one.
Cups.
I
Yeah.
finally got myself one, and they're amazing.
There you go.
We're not sponsored.
I'm sure they sell those
We
at
are
Shields,
sponsored.
right?
We are not sponsored. We are not getting money from them.
We're not getting
We're
sponsored.
trying to convince Jake to do Stanley Cups with the AFRL logo on them and sell them. I think that would be
So expensive.
They are expensive.
but it'd be
that
worth
was the
it.
problem. They were so expensive.
Mm.
I want to say something. I didn't tell you guys this. So Dawson and I are at the NAB show, so National Association of Broadcasters, and this is the biggest trade show for studios and broadcasting stuff like that. Dale and I went there last year with this time Dawson, because Dawson's coming on a year working in the studio, basically building the studio. Isn't that crazy? And you're learning about all the newest and greatest stuff on running a studio, running production. I'm going to just put it this way, guys. We got some really fun stuff in store for you. Because you guys tune in, and I'm humbled by this because we continue to grow. It's unbelievable. We continue growing every week. And so we want to bring a lot of new things to you. And I just think you're going to be amazed by the things we got in store for you. They'll be coming soon. But we're walking around this. And you can imagine these are people in broadcast and stuff like that. We're not with a bunch of conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mostly apolitical. If there's political leanings, it stops it way.
Mm-hmm.
But there's these two gentlemen walking around with Trump hats, mega hats.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, Dawson, I got to go find out what these guys are all about. They run a small radio station. I think it does the syndicated talk show hosts, like, the Hannitys and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn Beck's of the world. Is it near Sacramento? It's somewhere, small market in California. There's actually 3 of them. One of them was wearing a MAGA hat. But good dudes, and we might have them on the show at some point. They're pretty awesome
Nice.
people. So ran into those people in Vegas. Anything else before we sign off here in terms of comments there, Bridget?
Tucker mentioned a couple times, so I think he wants us to read it, that Scott Jensen is suing Keith Ellison.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, obviously Keith. Yeah, just quickly on that, Keith Ellison's obviously been targeting Scott Jensen, and they've been after his medical license. It's ridiculous. Let the guy practice his business.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about this. We have to mention it because our last show was about the new tax the Democrats offered, and it's basically the Amazon tax. They're taxing deliveries. It's 75 cents on every delivery to your household, Uber Eats, Amazon packages, Target online, whatever it is, right? 75 cents. the idea that the Democrats are for the small guy, that is a ridiculous thing at this point, right? They are definitely not for the small guy. That actually passed the Minnesota House yesterday.
Yeah. No, it's pretty shocking, and luckily we hear that the Senate might not pass something nearly as bad, but, any tax increase is just a slap in the face to the people, I don't know why these politicians think they're so entitled to our money, but it's just disgusting what they want to do.
And in a year that we have a $21 billion budget surplus.
Right,
too.
and the Democrats say tax the rich,
Yeah.
and then they're taxing everybody else.
Yeah, they're not taxing the rich.
Yeah.
Right? They're taxing you, 75 cents every package. That adds up after a while. So there you go. All right, we are going to end it there. We'll be back. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do a show on Tuesday because we were out of town. The Political Junkies will bring you live coverage possibly tomorrow, depending on when this thing happens. And then otherwise, the Truth Hurts show will be back on Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.